What makes the undateable girl undateable? A good friend of mine is a good example. She is quite attractive and has no problem getting in relationships, but all of them are done within like 2 months. Her expectation of a relationship is way too high. She becomes clingy, jealous and expects every date to be elaborate. So I would say maturity and unrealistic standards are a big reason. I personally also have an issue with people who are looking for the one, because no one is perfect, and if you're always looking for that perfect guy you'll probably never find him. Very true. Although it sounds like ops friends aren't even making it into relationships to begin with. So to start up, you have initial attraction, which is physical. Not everyone can be a supermodel, but everyone can do things to make themselves more appealing. This is pretty obvious to everyone. So I'm going to assume it's not a pointer your friends are unaware of, lol. Next you have social interaction / personality. They have to be able to hold a conversation, be interesting, and listen to what the other person is saying. No one wants to date someone who isn't interesting to talk to, and you need to show interest in the other person's interests. Not only go on about things you like. Obviously having common interests is great for this. But even if you don't both have the same hobbies, you can show interest in their hobbies and ask them questions about it and so on. It's also very important to be proactive and initiate interactions, especially if you aren't supermodel beautiful. This is where a lot of people fall short. They're just waiting around for someone else to make the move. If your friends want to start dating guys, they should approach them and continue to communicate with them, not in an overbearing / obsessive way obviously, but guys can be pretty dense with these kinds of things, lol. So it's good to make sure your intentions are clear, and then continue to make your interest clear, even after meeting them initially. Social ineptitude can be too easily mistaken for a lack of interest. Both will struggle to carry a conversation. Both will give one-word answers. Both will have guarded, closed-off body language. Both will likely never initiate a conversation or text first. Now, we could give the benefit of a doubt, assume social ineptitude and keep trying. However, we risk being labeled a creep for our lack of mind-reading capabilities. And really, who is going to give us a benefit of a doubt? Also, it's very demotivating to keep a conversation going when you're not receiving the same kind of effort from the opposite side. How will I keep talking if the responses I get are mostly, "Okay, that's interesting, really," and so on and so forth. I have been dating different girls lately, and one thing I can say on top of my head is complete lack of interest. If a girl is going to be completely blank in her lifestyle besides how pretty she is, that's a big no-no. I don't care if you are a supermodel. If you can't hold a conversation over a coffee, you are just gonna experience a hookup, and then bye bye. One of the worst dates I've ever had was with a gorgeous girl for coffee that could not hold a conversation. It was bad that I couldn't believe what was happening and just ended it early. It's not like she was on her phone or distracted either. Answered questions with just one word. Never elaborated. It was tough. One reason I've seen in both men and women is the desire for a 10 when they are only a 6. Also claiming themselves as a 10. Undateable? Many things. Tendency to give one-word answers. Not engaging in conversations properly. Unhealthy relationship patterns. Toxic family. Lack of appropriate cultural knowledge. Being rude. Being childish. Unrealistic expectations about what constitutes a relationship. Frequently being late or cancelling plans. Emitting an aura of uncomfortable stiffness. Wildly incompatible views on fundamental things like religion, politics, family, etc. Blatantly obvious purposelessness. Indifference towards her partner, the world, her friends, and so on. Basically the same is true for men as well. In regards to my ex, it was that she views having a boyfriend like having a dog or a personal trainer. Her expectations were that I would plan her entire life, entertain her, feed her, facilitate her work, constantly surprise her with nice gifts. We'd always do what she wanted to do and so on. I wasn't a person. I was a fashion accessory she expected to perform certain tasks. Her logic was that this exchange was paid for by her in sex. This was viewable by when she didn't get what she wanted, she would threaten to withhold sex. And if I said I didn't want to do something, she would offer sex as a reward for doing it. What made this untenable was eventually realized I didn't want to solely exist to entertain one woman. That depends on so many things. There are times where the woman is missing skills and maturity to be dateable. There are times where it's just incompatibility. Times where it's both. I think an emotionally aware and intelligent woman can figure it out through self-reflection. What made most undateable to me was that there was no sense of healing from past trauma. They would just come to me and be like, take me for who I am. It's cool to have a support system or someone to support you, but no one's gonna save you or change yourself. You gotta put in the work. It won't go away unless you address it. And the sooner you love yourself, the quicker and more solid things fall in place. Who've had this conversation with a girl I was trying to see. I ran into her twice a week for maybe 3 weeks. Every time we talked, it was at a bar. She would have to bring up her past and how she's not over it. I always try to avoid those conversations. I just want to talk and hang out. So the last day, I straight up told her, I just want to enjoy my time with you. But you always have to bring up the past. Why can't we just be happy with each other instead of finding a reason to get sad/mad? She did not like that. So I left saying she's toxic. Because we can spend a whole week together having fun and being happy. But she will always bring up this one thing from years ago just to bring herself down. This will vary from guy to guy, but for me, having high expectations of the men they try to date. We men are human. And we make mistakes and F up. Not saying like cheating or anything. But if we forget an important date, or forgot something, we all make mistakes, and it's important to recognize that. Next would be how they treat us, and others. If you are rude, just because you feel entitled, just get out of here. I don't want anything to do with you. Also definitely mental stability. Went on a date with a girl once. She asked me shortly after the convo started what it meant if a guy wanted to nut inside her. Then goes on a long-winded bit about her parents' divorce. It wasn't the fact she told me those things. It was the fact on a first date she told me those things and expected me to feel comfortable. You tell me that in the later stages of dating, like after we know who we are as people. If I did that to any girl, they'd walk right out. For younger people in general, not just women, I think its life moves very fast. The women I know who I'd say are undateable because of other reasons, it's their expectations being absolutely insane. I've heard some conversations about what they want in a man, and it's a list which rules out about 99% of all men, and they will not compromise. One woman I knew complained about being single, but she will quite literally only accept someone who is Chris Hemsworth as Thor, has to have long hair, be at least 6'4" with a high salary, drives his own car, has a pea size of 7 feet, but not be too busy with work. She can offer none of these things. I've met several examples of this insanely specific criteria. I don't have a lot of experience outside of the one relationship I was in, but since that ended I've definitely been in the undateable guy situation myself. In my case, it's because I'm overweight. That's a pretty obvious, clear reason and doesn't really need further explanation. Do the friends you're referring to have a reason that you can point to? Possible reasons why your female friends fail to get/keep a boyfriend: bad self-esteem, fashion sense like a hobo, she is unhygienic, men get joked on for smelling musty, but women don't sweat out flowers. She keeps a dirty place, she doesn't take care of herself, she has toxic beliefs, she might say crazy s at dates, like Hitler had a point, or court is making America weak, bad social skills, she just might treat every guy she meets as a servant/slave instead of an equal, she just might be unattractive for the men in her area, or related to a lot of men in her area, she just might be alienating her dates on the first date. Same way ladies hate being nerd bombed by a guy's hobby on the first date, same goes for us men, we will run for the hills if we get nerd bombed. The undateable girl is the one who has to reduce her standard a bit. If a Siamese twin can get into relationship with her male brother attached to her head, this just shows how desperate the AVG man is for a relationship. I posit that their boyfriend is not the average man. Being overweight, not grooming herself, hygiene and style, being boring, having an ego the size of Mount Doom, and the big one, being unable to take care of yourself. Not being able to run your own household and not knowing how to cook and clean is an immediate deal breaker. I think people are successful in relationships are those who understand that their attractiveness is very much in the eye of the beholder. So if you want someone to like you, you got to understand what that person likes and somewhat tailor to it. This can be done without giving up who you are as a person. Now, honestly, many men understand this. Doesn't mean they apply it, but they've realized it. When guys talk about not putting in the effort, it's can't be bothered. Maybe I don't understand what she wants, but rarely why doesn't she like what I like? Whereas when I hear my wife's single GFs chat, it's primarily the latter. I wouldn't call this undateable, but if anyone expects the other person to just enjoy what they enjoy because it's awesome, then it's not going to work. And many guys aren't exactly verbal enough to sit a girl down and explain to her why this specific thing doesn't rock their world. They might suffer in silence for between a minute to a decade and then call it quits. Similarly, hope it makes sense. High stress for little reward of account inability to make any decisions other than to decide your decision is the wrong one. Fat / smelly / generally horrendous at taking care of themselves. Mental health issues that become an excuse for behavior. Massive slag unrealistic expectations, particularly if they are above her station as a 5/10. At some point you have to look in the mirror and take responsibility for your situation. Anything you don't have in life is your fault. If you want something you have to do the work to get it. Point is your friends are doing something wrong because they aren't attracting the man they want. I agree with this, yes. I think that the biggest things are attitude, body language, being feminine, being supportive, showing respect. Didn't we just do a huge thread for this same question a few hours ago? Have they considered not rejecting everyone? They go out on a lot of first dates and seem willing to do more, but they never seem to go further. I wouldn't say it's about rejecting others, although everyone has types. For both men and women, when you're out looking for her, so you have to put in the work, meaning putting your realistic best you forward, not her Instagram influencer fake you, but the authentic best you. Combine that with going out and enjoying life. Don't focus as much on finding someone. Instead focus on activities you enjoy and groups that have similar interests. Many times I found myself in a relationship when I wasn't specifically looking for one. Meaning if your sole focus is on getting a so, it can sometimes give off a I'm desperate vibe. 1. Smoking. 2. Overly dependent. She needs to be her own person, and we make each other better. Instead of her Benny attached at the hip. 3. Loud. I don't mean she talks. I mean zero volume control. 4. Rude to me or other people. Things happen. But if rude is the default, that's a huge red flag. Most single girls are single by choice. There are loads of guys who would go out with you. You just don't want them. More like the guys you want don't want you. So it is not really by choice, I think. Any woman who wants to find a guy will find one in 2 seconds. Any woman who is looking for Mr. Perfect will spend her lifetime searching in futility. Well, this can be split up into 2 categories. 1. Things related to the will/desire of the girl to be with the guy. 2. Things related to what the guy sees towards the girl in relation to category #1. Many girls are undateable simply because they do not want men. They have fearful or avoidant attachment, meaning they run away from guys who want them. There are also girls who don't take relationships seriously at all. They don't try to find a man, and if a man does come along, they do nothing to keep him. They act uninterested. They just don't care about relationships. In category #2, being obese is probably the biggest, no pun intended, factor. There are other things like smoking cigarettes, if the guy doesn't smoke, wanting/not wanting children, being too high maintenance as in wanting the guy to do everything perfect, and getting angry if things aren't 150% perfect. The biggest things I've seen with some friends are 1. Be where dateable people are, and go meet them. 2. Establish the connection you're looking for. If you're about attraction, then get your hygiene and fitness in gear. If you're about conversation, then speak up and don't lie. You gotta stack up to the same metric you're measuring other people with. 3. Be observant of yourself, your relationship, And your own flaws. Something that consumes everything and offers nothing is called a parasite. Have a lot of friends who have never had a BF and want one so badly. This is probably your answer. If someone gives off a desperate, clingy vibe, it can be a huge turn off to potential dates/partners. Being fat and or ugly is a big one. If a woman is undateable, it is because they have unreasonable standards. What if they don't seem to really have standards?